What? With our AFC and NFC championship previews, the picks, the prediction, AFC, NFC championships this Sunday. Championship Sunday. This is going to be good, man. To me, these are the top 4 teams in the NFL. No way around it. No doubt about it. And for the first time, I feel in a long time, we have 4 awesome quarterbacks, phenomenal storylines, and really unpredictable matchups here. I think in years past, it's been kind of easy. I don't want to say it's been super easy, but kind of easy to determine who's going to win. But between these 4 teams, I feel it's going to be tight. I think we're going to get 2 awesome football games between 4 awesome teams. And I think we truly are going to get some great football. Both games are going to have some weather elements to them that might mix it up. Of course, both games are rematches, which I think only help the quality of the football we're really going to see on Sunday, because that means both teams have played each other before. Both teams kind of know each other in terms of the players, and they have a little bit of a rivalry or a little bit of a history behind them, as well as the media circus building up these games, of course, behind the 4 quarterbacks. So I am going to go in depth, strap in, get your popcorn ready, get your beverages, get your snacks, whatever it may be, because we're going to be here and I'm going to break these games down in depth and we're going to have some fun doing it. So if you enjoy that, if you enjoy the breakdowns here on the Bottom Line View, make sure that you do spike that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL previews and weekly NFL picks. As always, guys, I want to hear from you in the comment section, whether that's live or if you're watching this at a later date, later in the week. Maybe you're watching this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday morning before the games take place. Let me know in the comments your questions about the matchups, as well as your opinion. Who do you think is going to win the AFC? Who do you think is going to win the NFC? The Packers versus the Bucs. The Chiefs versus the Bills. Leave your predictions in the comments and let me know. Here we go. Before I get into the first game, which is the NFC Championship, and let me know which game you're more excited for, because I'm a little surprised that they put the NFC Championship first on the schedule, because it's the game that I think is more, it's bigger. I think there's more spectacle behind Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady than Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. I feel like there's more narrative, more history, more casual audience that's going to be paying attention to the Packers and the Bucs as compared to the Chiefs and Bills. Not saying that one matchup is better than the other. Obviously, you guys know which game I'm more excited for. Bucs and Packers. But I was a little surprised that they put the NFC in the early slot and the AFC in the primetime slot. But I get it. They do alternate, I think, every single year. So it does make sense. All right, so let's get to my picks, my record, before I give you the previews. So far in the playoffs, I am 9-1 straight up. I'm hitting at 90%. And I will say that this week, in my opinion, is the most difficult week of the playoffs, in my opinion, because I feel like truly these games could go either way, and truly either team in both games can win. So I think it's going to be difficult even to just get these games right straight up. Versus the spread, I am 6-4. My best bets last week, I went 3-1. So I was 3-1 in the divisional round, 3-3 in the wild card round versus the spread. Straight up, I am 9-1. So those are my records. Let me know if any of you guys are undefeated. Let me know, because that would be pretty spectacular. I don't know too many people that are 10 for 10, but let me know if you are, because that's pretty awesome. Or even if you're 9 or 8 wins, congratulations. All right. So enough fooling around, okay? Let's get to it. Let's get to the games. And let's first start with the NFC Championship. I got plenty of notes. I got plenty of stats. I'm heavy on the stats this week. We got a lot of interesting stats. And of course, unlike a lot of weeks, we have previous information about these matchups, right? Because they played already this season. Not saying, and a lot of people are going to say, Mitch, how much does that matter? You know, how much does you playing a team early in the year matter? I think it all depends on the game, and it all depends on the matchup. I think certain years, more than others, are indicative of what you're going to see in the playoffs. I think some years are really, it's the same result. Like last year, for example, San Francisco, Green Bay. You know, I sat here last year, I'm like, I don't think there's any way Green Bay beats San Francisco. Based on the first matchup, I don't see enough changing from the first matchup to the second matchup. Some years, it's totally different. Like, I think this year, because of the lack of offseason, because of the lack of training camp, because of some of the coaching changes, quarterback changes, and things we've seen throughout the season, these teams have evolved much more this year than in past years. So I feel like this year, more than other years, there has been the development of teams such as Tampa Bay, you know, probably the most out of all of these teams. I think if Tampa Bay was the same team they were earlier in the year, they wouldn't be here, right? Green Bay is a team that has gotten better, hit their stride. Buffalo hit their stride late in the year. Kansas City has had dealing with expectations, and they're kind of the same core team, but now they're having to deal with some adversity. So it all depends on the matchup, and it all depends on the team, the schemes, and all of that stuff, and when they find their identity. For some teams, that takes longer. For some teams, they know their identity from week one. So it's all about perspective and the matchup. All right, so let's start with the NFC. Let's take a look, before anything, at the tail of the tape. All right, so Tampa Bay, Green Bay. We have the number one offense in the NFL, according to DVOA, in the Green Bay Packers. They have been very steady, very, very consistent. They faced their worst game. I know you've heard it many times of the season. They only scored 10 points. They were blown out 38-10 in the Week 6 matchup, right? Blown the F out, okay? And this was their worst game by far, playing Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. Again, how much does that matter? I truly don't know until we see it again on the field. But they were the number one offense for a reason, because I think they were the most consistent offense. They were one of the more balanced offenses in the league. And of course, they have the MVP. Now, Tom Brady and Tampa Bay has been a really good offense, but kind of in spurts. Especially at the end of this season, they are really, really good. Now, the Saints game wasn't their best effort, and I think some people are going to hang their hats on that. We're going to talk about why that's not important to this game in just a second. But they truly are an elite offense that you should not sleep on because of their playmakers, their explosive ability, and just like Green Bay, they are very balanced. Defensively, Green Bay has been a complementary defense. They take the football away at a decent rate. They sack quarterbacks when they have to. You know, they come up big. I would kind of compare them to the Chiefs defense in the way that they make plays at the end of games to close games out. They're good versus the pass. They have their weaknesses versus the run. They have clear deficiencies, but they also have many playmakers that make up for it. Their secondary is their strength. Their front can be had in certain situations, but they have, of course, Darius Smith, Kenny Clark. Rashawn Gary had a big game last game. Tampa Bay had one of their best efforts a week ago, ranking number 5 this year, with Todd Bowles being one of the best coordinators in football. They have the best linebacker duo in the league, arguably the best front 7 in football all around, from pass rush to run stuffing ability, and a secondary that's young, unheralded, but pretty talented. Now, in terms of point differential, they're fairly the same, 3 points off. This is during the regular season, of course. And turnover differential, they're basically the same team. So, this game could be determined on the surface by the team that wins the turnover battle, of course. I think both of these games, when you look at an AFC and NFC championship, whoever turns the ball over more is more likely to lose. That's just simple mathematics, simple football. We know this, right? Simple football, if you turn the ball over, you're likely to lose. Both of these teams have been good at protecting the ball, especially lately. And I would say Tampa has a significant advantage in, at least the stats, in taking the ball away from the other team. But what throws a wrench into that is that Packers are at home. Packers have the home field. They know the environment, the weather, the snow a little bit better than Tampa, even though Tampa is the feistier defense that they're good at legitimately taking the ball away from the other team because they're opportunistic. They create pressure. They create strip fumbles. They create all this stuff on their own. It's not just an environment or just a factor because they're playing a bad offense. That is what they do, and they've been doing it all year. Now, let's take a look at that matchup between the Packers and the Buccaneers. Now, I do want to say a couple things before I get into the specifics of offense versus defense and offense versus defense and all that detail. I do want to take a look at the overall complexion of both games. And here are 2 stats that I found very interesting when, historically between AFC and NFC championship games, just that I thought were kind of, interesting to talk about and hear about. So, there have been a total of 9 AFC or NFC championship games. And because both of these games are rematches of Week 6 specifically, both of these games were played in the same week of the season, Week 6. Now, over the past 7 years, there have been rematches in 9 of those 14 games, I would suppose. The team that won during the regular season has gone 7-2 in the title game. So that would give an advantage to Tampa and Kansas City, who won the opening game. Take that as you wish. Now, secondly, at least one team that has played on Saturday in the divisional round, with getting an extra day of rest, has won in the conference championship game in 14 of the past 15 years. So at least one from the AFC or the NFC, when they play on Saturday in divisional round, 14 out of 15 times one of those teams advances. So that is disadvantage Buccaneers, disadvantage Chiefs. So which stat do you really believe in? The team that won the first matchup or the team that played on Saturday with maybe the day extra of rest? So it makes it advantage Chiefs in Tampa because they won the first matchup, but highly unlikely that the Bucs and the Chiefs will both win. So keep that in mind. I thought that was interesting. All right, so now specifically to the NFC Championship game. These are the headlines and the notes. Obviously, we know there could be weather. It's Lambeau Field. Now, how do the Buccaneers handle the cold? And I'm really intrigued specifically offensively how Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, and Byron Leftwich approach their attack of the Packers defense, considering there might be precipitation and there might be some snow. They haven't had to deal with, I don't think, rain all year, and they certainly have not had to deal with snow. The Packers have as of recently, and they are very good at playing in it. Now, Tom Brady is excellent in cold weather. We know this. He has won playoff games in the snow. He has won big games in cold weather. But how will the rest of the team play? Who is used to playing in that weather? That's an interesting question. Now, I looked down the roster. A few guys come to mind that I think are fine with this weather. That's Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown if he plays. Cameron Brate played in a very cold climate in college, so at least he knows what to expect. Same as Tristan Wirfs, a couple of the offensive linemen. Defensively, Jason Pierre-Paul playing from the Giants for much of his career. Ndamukong Suh playing in Lambeau multiple times with Detroit. And just Shaq Barrett in Denver. So there are players with experience. Antoine Winfield being from Minnesota. Tyler Johnson being from Minnesota just a season ago. Both have dealt with the elements. So there are players on Tampa that have experience in this weather. Shady McCoy, if he ends up playing. All of those guys have experience in the weather, but as a collective whole, will they be ready to handle the elements? And this, to me, it's all about handling the fundamentals, right? It's all about tackling on defense, being able to tackle, being able to get your footing, right? That's all what it's about on defense. Handling the yards after catch on offense and on defense. That means tackling on defense, and that means extending plays on offense. That means, okay, are we short passing game, and how are we able to create yards after the catch in the snow? Because that can be a big factor if there's plenty of snow on the field. Now, I don't know if it will just be snow coming from the sky and none on the field, if it will just be cold and no snow. I don't know if it will be like a winter wonderland. I don't exactly know. I'm not a weatherman, but I'm just telling you what matters in the snow. And those things are yak, those things are tackling, those things are fundamentals, those things are ball security, those things are kicking game. All of those things, the details matter in the snow. Now, an interesting stat I saw from Tom Brady himself is that he has eliminated 7 MVPs in the playoffs. And in games facing MVPs, he is 7-1 in the playoffs. He only lost to 2013 Peyton Manning on the road in the AFC Championship game. The other games, there's a long list of guys that he eliminated, including Peyton Manning twice, LaDainian Tomlinson, Matt Ryan, and a plethora of them. I can't remember them all. All right, last week, both teams relied on their ground game versus good defenses. I think this is something to note because I think both teams at their core do like to stay balanced offensively, and I feel like whatever team can stay balanced might have the edge, especially within the elements of the snow. If it comes down to which team is not able to run or which team is able to run, that team might gain the advantage in this game. Now, I wanted to research something very, very interesting about Aaron Rodgers. So just thinking about Aaron Rodgers and the fact that this is a rematch, I was thinking okay, so Aaron Rodgers, I'm thinking at his career and I'm thinking, every time Aaron Rodgers is eliminated, it feels like he was eliminated by a team that he lost to in the regular season. So I was like, let's do the research on that. Let's see if the stats prove that. So what I found this morning was his record versus teams that he lost to in the playoffs is 2-7. So Aaron Rodgers, teams that he lost to during the regular season and played in the playoffs, he has beaten those teams twice. I think one of them was the Cowboys and one of them was the Falcons. One of them was in 2010 and one of them was in 2016. Both in the divisional round, I believe. And the rest of the games, he lost. And I think 3 of those are in the NFC Championship. Now, Rodgers in playoff rematches has been slightly better, finishing 5-8, but still below 500. The interesting thing about this is that Aaron Rodgers is 7-0 in games where he beat the team or never played them in the regular season. So Rodgers is undefeated. Rodgers is unbeatable when he doesn't play you in the regular season or if he's already beat you. But if Rodgers has lost to you already, he doesn't tend to fare well in the second game. Now, I wanted to compare that to Tom Brady. So Tom Brady has lost 4 games in the playoffs in which he beat the team that he played in the regular season. So if he beat a team in the regular season, he has lost 4 such games, but he is 10-4 in those matchups. So he's 1-10, lost 4. The teams he lost to were the 2007 Giants, the 2009 Ravens, which he didn't have, was it Welker in that game, but regardless, still a stat. The 2010 Jets and the 2013 Broncos. I discussed the 2013 Broncos already. And one was in the Super Bowl, one was in the AFC Championship, one was in the wild card, and one was in the divisional round. That's actually funny how that works. So he's 10-4 in those games. Now, let's put that a little bit more in particular to the Bucs and the Packers. What are their records in some games this year? So something that could determine the game for the Bucs, of course, is turnovers. They seem to feed off turnovers, right? The Bucs are 12-1 when they turn it over one or less times. So one or fewer times, they are 12-1. So when the Bucs play a clean game, they're basically unbeatable. Now, when the Bucs are turning it over and playing poorly, they are 1-4. So if they've turned it over two or more times, they're 1-4. Now that seems to make sense. Turnovers are a big deal to wins and losses, but in particular to the Bucs, because they are so talented, they lose games because they lose games, right? When they win games, it's because they're better. Now, I brought this up last week. When the Bucs score 25 plus points, they are 13-0. So if you think this game's going to be high scoring, that favors Tampa Bay. Every game the Bucs have lost, they have failed to score more than 24. If they do not score more than 24, they're going to lose this game. Tampa Bay. They are 0-5. All three of the Packers' losses, I also brought this up last week, was when the other team was able to run the ball. They ran for 140 plus rushing yards in those games. Every loss the Packers have had this year is because they couldn't stop the run. Okay? So those are some key headlines, stats that I thought were very interesting for you to kind of think about. Whatever you want to do with them, you can do with them. They're just fun stats that I thought I'd throw out there. Now, let's get to the injury reports. So for Tampa Bay, Antonio Brown is questionable. He is day-to-day. He did not practice on Wednesday. He was the only player for Tampa to not practice. He is day-to-day. I expect him to play, but probably in limited capacity. Now, the big name is Vita Vea. Vita Vea, literally and figuratively, is a big name. He practiced on Wednesday for the first time, and they are trying to get him to play on Sunday. Vita Vea, if you guys do not know, is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. In my opinion, he is the best nose tackle in the NFL, and he ranked as the number 2 PFF interior defensive lineman through the first 6 weeks. He also ranked 3rd in pass rushing grade. So he's not just a run stuffer. A lot of people think because he's so big, he's just a run stuffer. No, he's also an excellent pass rusher because of his power. He only ranked below Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. So Vita Vea, if he's able to play, is a game changer. He takes this defense from good to excellent. Now, the rest of the injury report, 7 guys limited. The list included like JPP taking off time like he always does every week. And Ronald Jones looks to be okay. He talked about how he'll be ready to play this Sunday. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, limited, not fully participating in practice. Green Bay, 10 guys limited, but I would expect all of them to play. You have the linebacker, Barnes, a lot of key players, but they should all play. Barnes, the linebacker, their number 1 linebacker. Crosby, their kicker, which I thought was interesting. Dillon and Williams, their running backs. Kingsley, Lazard, Lewis, Zadarius Smith, Connor's favorite player, St. Brown, and Wagner, their right tackle. So all those players were limited, but they should all be good to go, I think. Now, those are the injury reports. Let's go to the Bucs offense versus the Packers defense. So I always like to look at previous matchups between the coach and the coordinator. Tom Brady has won 8 straight games against Mike Pettin. He has 15 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in those 8 games. Pettin was the defensive coordinator in the AFC East from 2009 to 2013 with the Bills and the Jets. He worked under Rex Ryan. So keep that in mind. Brady has a lot of recognition of Pettin's defenses, schemes, blitzes, and coverages, but Pettin also knows a lot about Tom Brady. The The last time they played was earlier this season, but the time before that was in 2018 when he was still the Packers defensive coordinator. The Patriots won that game with Tom Brady. Something that I think is very key to the Buccaneers on both sides of the football is their toughness and their size, specifically their size. The Bucs on offense, I think, can use their big offensive line to help them, especially if this game becomes a snow game, because they are a lot bigger than Green Bay on both sides of the ball. I think that the Bucs in this game, like they did in the first game, need to control time of possession. And using that offensive line to win matchups in the running game and the passing game is crucial. So what I expect Tampa Bay to do is they are going to run, I think, a lot of 12 personnel. 12 personnel is 2 receivers and 2 tight ends. So that's Gronk and Brate, probably Godwin and Evans. I think that's the best way you can attack Green Bay because Green Bay is a small defense. They like to play a lot of secondary players, and it puts them in a bind because if you force them to put big players on the field, those are their worst players. So if you force Green Bay to put an extra linebacker, a third linebacker, an extra defensive lineman, those guys are worse than their corners and their safeties. That's just the way the team is built. So Tampa could really feed off of Gronk, Cameron Brate as both blockers and receivers, as well as Leonard Fournette, which we saw last week as a receiver out of the backfield. The big matchup on the outside, of course, is Alexander versus Evans. I think Alexander, you favor him in that matchup, just as you would Lattimore and Evans. I think Alexander and Lattimore are fairly similar corners. They're built kind of similarly, and I think Alexander will probably win a majority of those snaps. So I don't feel Evans is going to be the most involved in this game. Now, the thing with Tampa or with Green Bay as opposed to New Orleans is New Orleans played a lot more man coverage than Green Bay does. Green Bay tends to play a lot more zone, specifically cover 3 zone. So that opens up Evans to not necessarily get shut down because zone, you never know. The guy could still be open depending on where the corner is, as opposed to Lattimore and the Saints playing a lot of man press, 2 deep coverage, and kind of allowing their defensive line to take away the run. This is a big difference between Green Bay and New Orleans. So Green Bay can't really just play the way the Saints played, which was a lot of 2 deep underneath man coverage and then just let their D-line kind of win the matchups in the running game. Now, Tampa Bay was able to run the ball specifically in the second half, which was why they moved the ball in the second half efficiently. And they were able to sprinkle in the pass. They kind of took the ball out of Brady's hands in that game because they figured the way we're going to win is through our defense and our running game. Now, in this game, Green Bay's defense isn't built that way. They're in a bind, like I said, because I don't think they're good enough up front that they can stop the run while trying to stop the pass. So what New Orleans did to Tampa and why there's such a good matchup for Tampa is because they are one of the few teams that on both lines of scrimmage can actually both block and actually win the matchup on their defensive line, specifically with their ability to pass rush with 4 and their ability to stop the run with just 4 or 5 and having an empty box, so to speak, having a limited players in the box. So what New Orleans said was, we're going to not put that many players to stop the run. We're going to let you run with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and we're going to rely on Cameron Jordan and these defensive linemen to win their matchups and stop the run. That backfired on them because Tampa was still able to run the ball, but it was the most effective strategy. Because if New Orleans was to say, we're going to put all these guys in the box and just match up outside without safety help, we're going to get burnt by Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So what the Packers have to choose is times to stop the run and put their eggs in that basket and times to defend the pass. And most likely Green Bay loves to play towards defending the pass. They like to take the big play away, which I think will mean that the Bucs will be able to run the ball very successfully the same way that they did in the first game. Now, what that could do is if Green Bay becomes in a bind, we can't stop the run, they're running for 4 or 5 yards a clip, then that's going to open up play action to the Gronk, to Brait, to Godwin, to Evans, and that's where I think the Packers are going to really have a tough time stopping this offense. Another key to this game and stopping Tom Brady, as we know, is pressure. And I think you would be surprised to understand that Green Bay has been better as of late pressuring quarterbacks. But overall, the course of the season, they haven't been great. They ranked 26th in pressure percentage and 29th in quarterback knockdown percentage. So they're not great at getting after quarterbacks unless they blitz. And we know that they can't really match up with Tampa if they blitz, other than Alexander. I feel like they lose those matchups on the outside. I think a key for Green Bay will be when they get Tampa in those situations, Kenny Clark needs to dominate this game inside. He needs to push the pocket, he needs to win his matchup, and he needs to be able to get after Tom Brady. The same can be said with Za'Darius Smith on stunts and inside pressure. I think they're going to line him up inside and try to get him to push the pocket that way. Because we know that Tom Brady's not really affected by edge pressure. He's affected by interior pressure. Now, the best players on Green Bay are on the edge, but they do tend to line up Za'Darius Smith in the inside. Now, why I am confident in Tampa Bay's ability to run the ball, it speaks to where they run the ball as well. Now, Tampa Bay's run offense is very good in the middle of, running the ball between the center and the guard. They rank in the top 7. To the right tackle, Tristan Wirfs, they rank in the top 10, and to the right end, they rank 9th. Green Bay's defensive line is weak up the middle, 22nd in yards per carry allowed. Right end, they're 17th. Right tackle, they're 17th. So Tampa Bay across the board has an advantage in the running game, and I think they have matchups they can exploit in the passing game through their tight ends, running backs, and probably slot and a secondary receivers. Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, Chris Godwin. The only advantage I would necessarily give to Green Bay is on probably more than not third and longs and Alexander on Evans. Other than that, the Bucs match up extremely well offensively versus Green Bay's defense. On the flip side, this is going to be an awesome matchup because we saw what happened the first time. Tampa was all over them, blitzed them from the left, the right, the middle. Aaron Rodgers had no answers. So what's going to happen on the flip side of the football? The Bucs, the thing about them is they're a team that feeds off momentum. So it's going to be really interesting to see their confidence heading into this game after dominating New Orleans offense and kind of getting the monkey off their back. How does that affect this game? Is Devin White just all over the place? Like, can you see the energy from Tampa's defense early in this game? Because that is going to be key to them early in this game. Because I think if the Packers offense is able to move the ball, get rhythm, get pace, they're most likely going to win. But if the Bucs defense comes out just flying around and they're like high-fiving each other and they're like fist pumping and all that stuff, like Devin White and Sue is like chirping Rodgers, then the Bucs are going to win. Like, it's really that simple. Now, when you look at Tampa Bay's defense, they are extremely physical. They are tough. They're kind of old school, and they are very fast at the second level. The reason Green Bay had such a difficult time last time was because of Tampa Bay's linebackers. The speed of Devin White and Levante David was just overwhelming. They were tackling, behind the line of scrimmage. The Packers love to run outside zone. That they were going for no yards, like negative yards, 0 yards. Aaron Jones had like 12 carries for 15 yards, something to that degree. And Devin White and Levante David were just shooting gaps and making plays. And that is concerning because I think the bread and butter of Green Bay's offense is the ability to run that football and the ability for LaFleur to have so many ties to the way that they run it to their play action game. And that's where Aaron Rodgers hits those big plays over the top. So I really look at this matchup, especially if Vita Vea is there, and I just don't think Green Bay can run the ball versus Tampa's defense, because nobody can, guys. It's not just Green Bay. Nobody can. The only team I saw was Dalvin Cook for like half a game, and that was it. And that's huge because I think a lot of people are talking about Green Bay just absolutely eating up the Rams, and a lot of that had to do with their running game, right? They carried the ball 32 times, their running backs, versus the Rams, and they had 4 5-yard carries. And that's where Green Bay was able to wear out the Rams defense and eventually beat them down the field with Allen Lazard over the top. The Packers ran for 188 yards versus LA. And again, that's a huge reason they were able to beat such a good defense, along with Aaron Donald being hurt, right? Tampa Bay, just look across the board. They have no weaknesses. Like somebody earlier this week asked me, where do you run on Tampa? And I was like, I don't know. Their adjusted line yards is first. On the left side, they are second. On the left tackle, they are sixth. In the middle to the guard, in the middle, they are first. The right tackle, they are third. The only place that they're average is to the right end. So I guess that's where you could run it. But again, if Vita Vea is there, they got McClendon, Sue. They got big people in the middle of the field too, Golston. And then, of course, they have Shaq and JPP on the outside with those super fast linebackers. So the way that I see Tampa playing Green Bay is I think on early downs, they are really going to play soft I should restate that. I think what they're going to do is not play soft in coverage. I think what they're going to do is play 2 deep looks. I don't think they are going to allow Green Bay to play action them to death on early downs. Because I think Tampa is one of the few teams that believes that their front, without adding extra people to the box, can stop Green Bay. And they're not going to let Aaron Rodgers have the big playoff play action early. That's probably what I think is going to happen. I think Tampa Bay is going to play a lot of 2-man. I think they're going to have a double on Adams a lot of the time. And I think they're going to play a lot like they did versus the Saints, just with safeties back as opposed to in the box. The thing is, the Saints try to run the ball. The Saints are a better running team than Green Bay. They could not run the ball because there was extra guys in the box, because Drew Brees allows you to have extra guys in the box because he can't throw deep. But with Aaron Rodgers, you need to respect the deep ball. So you need to back off your safeties, but play press man underneath, because that's what the Bucs do well. And I think that is in line with what Aaron Rodgers has done this year. A little bit more on that in a second. So basically the philosophy for Tampa and all teams that play Aaron Rodgers is you cannot beat Aaron Rodgers. You have to beat everyone around Aaron Rodgers. You have to beat the team, the scheme, not Aaron Rodgers, right? It's the same with Tom Brady or any great quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, same thing. Now, when you're on Green Bay, the best way to attack Tampa, I've said this repeatedly week after week after week, is the LA Ram game plan, which was spread them out, attack them underneath, try to get the ball out quickly. Try to spread them out. Try to get their 4th corner on the field. Try to get Ross Cockrell on the field, right? It's the exact opposite of the way that you attack the Packers defense, right? With the Packers defense, you want to go bigger. But with the Bucs defense, you want to go smaller. You want to do less running, more dinking and dunking underneath, and you want to get the ball out of your hands quickly. Now, where it's going to be interesting to see is, okay, does Bowles let that happen, right? Does Bowles sit back in soft zone and say, Aaron, we're not going to give up the big play like the Rams did? Or are they going to play similarly to the way they played versus the Saints, which is man coverage? We're going to try to bump you off the line. We're going to try to take your timing away, and it's up to your guys to win on the outside. That is going to be very interesting to see what Todd Bowles does there, because I think with the 4-man rush, the Bucs are a lot more. Their defense is designed a lot better to pass rush Aaron Rodgers than the Rams, because the Rams defense is all about their interior pass rush, but the Packers have a great interior line. So they were able to kind of stop that, right? They were able to hold that, especially with Aaron Donald playing basically not at his level and not playing much. The Rams weren't able to get any rush with a 4-man rush or a 3-man rush. With Tampa, their best players on their pass rushers are their edge guys, JPP and Shaq, and they overwhelmed the Packers the first time. And this is the first true game where the loss of David Bakhtiari might end up hurting the Packers because of that matchup. But again, that all depends if the Bucs stop the run. And the way that I put it is, or the way that the Packers approach first and second down. If the Packers approach first and second down and we're going to play our game, we're going to run the ball, they're going to lose. If the Packers come out on first down and second down, get Rodgers in 5 wide or get Rodgers in spread, and they try to attack matchups underneath versus man or zone, and they're not running the ball, and they're not setting themselves up for 3rd and long, for 2nd and long, then that's where they can win this game and move the football effectively. It all comes down to Matt LaFleur's game plan, right? And it comes down to Tampa's ability to disrupt this offense. So I went in depth and I looked, okay, what's the difference between Aaron Rodgers last year and this offense last year and Aaron Rodgers this year, right? So the key to Aaron Rodgers' difference in success this year, why he's the MVP this year and not last year, even though he's physically the same, what's the difference? It's increased rhythm. It's increased quick throws. It's easy completions. So I looked at the stats. So the intended air yards of Aaron Rodgers is down. Intended air yards, how far you throw the ball down the field, is down by a full yard from the last 2 seasons, 2018 and 2019. It is now 7.7 yards compared to 8.8 yards. The completed air yards is down from 5.4. Had to make sure I got the right number. And his yards after catch, this is an interesting stat. His yards after catch is up to 6.1 per completion. The Green Bay Packers have led the NFL in 2020 in yards after catch because they throw the ball hot a lot. They throw the ball quick a lot. So Rodgers, a lot like Drew Brees, actually has more yards than intended air yards for the first time in his career. That is the difference between Aaron Rodgers this year and Aaron Rodgers last year. Aaron Rodgers last year was holding onto the ball, looking down the field a lot, and they hadn't developed their quick game. They hadn't developed their short game. This year, they're a lot more Drew Brees, right? They're a lot more throw the ball quick, screens, slants, underneath stuff to the back. Rodgers is making very quick decisions. Therefore, he's protecting his offensive line and he's not getting sacked as much, right? He's not getting pressured as much. His pressure is down 7% from a year ago. His sacks are down 16, 36 to 20, although he has basically an identical offensive line. His yards per completion is at 3.9, guys, and his intended air yards per attempt is 7.7, which is along the same as Minshew and Sam Darnold, okay? So Rodgers actually, the myth is that Rodgers is a downfield passer. Now, Rodgers can do that and has done that early in his career. That's where they made their hay. That's where Rodgers was amazing. But this year, Aaron Rodgers is Drew Breesian. Now, at a much better level because he can attack you down the field. But that's their core of their passing game, is throwing the ball underneath. So, does Tampa Bay play man press coverage like they did to Drew Brees with 2-man over top? That's what I think they'll do. I think they'll play a lot of 2-man deep, cover 2 man, and I think they'll play, and I think they'll blitz when they have the opportunity in certain situations. But I think that Tampa early in the game is going to say, let's see how our 4-man rush does, especially if Vita Vea's in the game, because we believe our edge guys can pressure you with bad tackles, right? Wagner and Turner. And to me, this is where the Rams went wrong by attacking the Packers. The Rams went wrong in playing soft coverage. They did not play aggressive physical coverage, and they allowed Rodgers to get the ball out quick, not allowing their defensive line enough time to get to the quarterback. So, to me, That is the key, is how do the Bucs play their coverage? Do they allow enough time for their blitzes, their stunts, and their playmakers up front to get to Rodgers? If they do not play underneath, I think Rodgers will have success with the quick game. So that is a huge thing to me. And if Tampa does have the time to get the quarterback, they will, right? They're 5th in quarterback knockdown percentage. They're 3rd in pressure percentage. And we saw they had problems with their blitz early in the game or early in the season. And I think a lot of people are saying this game's going to be totally different. This is where I think it's the same. I don't think you can say that we are totally different in our protection when your players are just worse than Tampa's players. Like, Turner is just worse than Shaq Barrett. Like, that's just the case. If he's one-on-one, he is going to lose more often than he's going to win. Like, that's just the case. So it's up to the coverage of Tampa to allow their front to get there. Now for Green Bay, I think they should be using, again, a lot of quick throws. But I think also 2 players are going to be important. 3 players, really. I think Alan Lazard is going to be very important. He's probably going to see a lot of Sean Murphy bunting. And I think he could be used a lot like Cooper Kupp was used. He's not as quick as Cooper Kupp, but I think he can win that matchup running some options and stuff like that from the slot. You could put Devontae Adams in the slot, make it challenging for Carlton Davis or for them to double him and to get him, running those routes to the inside or the outside underneath to win quickly versus man if that's what they choose to do. I think Jamel Dean and Valdez Scantling is pretty much a wash. They're basically the same player that played 2 different positions. Like, Dean is super fast and super long, and Scantling is super fast and super tall. Like, they're the same player. So, like, that's like an identical matchup. But I think the matchups on the outside, Davis has been good versus route running receivers. But this is a different level, right? This is Devontae Adams we're talking about. So I believe if the Bucs don't double team him, you're going to lose. If you let Rodgers go to Adams a lot, you're going to lose. Like, because if you're the Bucs, you need to say, how do we not lose? And you lose by letting Adams be one-on-one, letting Adams have the matchup. And I think Bowles is smart enough to say, as often as we can, we're going to have 2 bodies near him, or we're going to just force the rest of the receivers to beat us. It's that simple. Final thing here on this side of the ball is I think it's going to be a lot overall. You're going to see some man. You're going to see some zone. You're going to see some disguise blitzes. You're going to see some dropout blitzes. This guy's coming, this guy's going sort of thing. I think you're going to see a lot of guys at the line, and then they're going to back off. Another team that did an excellent job versus Aaron Rodgers, it went way under the radar, but was the Carolina Panthers. And I think that's at least a closer game. I think that game was like week 13, 14, 15 area, where maybe Tampa looks a little bit at what Carolina did to Aaron Rodgers to get pressure, because Carolina sacked him 4 or 5 times in that game and held him under 200 yards. So I think Tampa will mix in a little bit what they did the first time, a little bit what Carolina did, and a little bit of what they do well, which is primarily man coverage. Now, the final thing I want to talk about here is special teams. Both teams suck on special teams, according to DVOA. Right? Tampa was at a huge disadvantage against the Saints on special teams, because the Saints are like the best special teams, or one of the best special teams in the league. The Bucs are 26th and Green Bay's 25th. So special teams probably won't determine this game. The only place I'd say it might is Crosby does have experience kicking in the snow, and Suckup does not, I don't think. So if this game comes down to a game-winning field goal, I'd lean towards Green Bay. Okay? My prediction for this game, summing up everything I've said here, is I'm sticking with my pick. I have seen nothing through my analysis, my thoughts, and my notes. I am going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to beat the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field 30-23. Sum up my thoughts. I think the Bucs are a very challenging matchup to the Packers because they are better on both lines of scrimmage. They have more playmakers that challenge the depth of the Packers secondary. They are a team that can beat you in a multitude of ways. Whether that is through a balanced approach, they can play power football or they can pass the ball. Tom Brady is used to playing in cold weather. And I think the Packers' key to their offense is quick timing, rhythm, and run game. Now go down the list. The Bucs stop the run better than anybody. That is going to be challenging for Green Bay. The Bucs have one of the fastest defenses in the NFL to take away the quick game. And I think they have one of the few defensive lines that can actually get after Aaron Rodgers. So, yes, I understand Green Bay has the better quarterback. Green Bay has the better record. They have the home field. But when you realistically look at the matchups in this game, the better football team is Tampa Bay. The reason I am not 100% on this game, if this game was in Tampa, I would lock this in and bet a lot of money on it. If this game, it's in Lambeau, snow is a huge factor, weather is a huge factor, which always could lead to mistakes by a team that is mistake prone and a team that can cough the ball away, right? I think, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say the Saints were this close, the Saints did this. The Saints are the worst matchup for the Bucs in the NFL. The worst matchup, by far. The Packers are a totally different team. The Bucs got by their worst matchup. The Packers, this might very well be their worst matchup. And if the Packers beat Tampa, I think they win the Super Bowl. I'm going to say that right now. If the Packers beat Tampa, they will win the Super Bowl. If the Bucs beat the Packers, maybe they win the Super Bowl, maybe they do not. But this is a tough game for Green Bay. And I think it comes down to, for Tampa Bay, their ability to possess the ball on offense and their ability to stop the run on defense. So I'm going to go with Tampa to win this game 30-23. Closer game than last time, obviously. So let me know your picks for that game. Let me know what you think on that game. All right. If you enjoyed that breakdown, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos just like this. All right. The AFC Championship game. Let's actually redo that for a second. I want to check out the comments. Do you think the NFL is rigged for the Packers? No. Okay. This is also something that I've heard a lot from a lot of analysts, is that Tampa runs the ball too much on early downs. But here's the thing. I don't think that matters when you play Green Bay because I think they'll have success doing it. So, yes, I'd much prefer Tampa Bay to have play action and passing on first down versus most teams. But versus Green Bay, I don't think it matters. All right, to the AFC. The AFC Championship, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, two of the most exciting young quarterbacks in the NFL. This is going to be a fun football game. And I am really hoping that both of these teams just go all out and say, you know what? We're not going to try to, oh, your offense is awesome. We're not going to try to run the ball and manage the clock. No, 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 no. We are going to just outscore you, baby. That's what we're going to do. That's what I want to see from Kansas City and Buffalo. And I feel like in the prime time slate, I want to see 30-24. I want to see 30-27. I want to see 34-31. I want to see 38-34. That's what I want to see in this game, and I think we have a chance to see it here. But I wouldn't be surprised if people heading into this game were underrating both defenses in this game, and that is going to be very interesting. Which defense has a better answer to stop the opposing offense? There are a lot of interesting factors in this game that I think are very hard to account for. Much different from the NFC Championship game. The NFC Championship game, we basically know who's playing, especially at quarterback, and we don't have a lot of guessing to do there. Mahomes, is he playing, is he not? I believe he'll play. He was at practice, full participant on Wednesday. That is huge. But will he be limited by his foot? That is a question that will be answered on Sunday. And I'm not a doctor. I cannot tell you how limited he will be by his foot, by his turf toe, right? Because that very well may be the difference in this game. Is Mahomes 100 or is Mahomes 85? Because I think if you have Patrick Mahomes at 85, Josh Allen is better. But if Patrick Mahomes is 100 and Josh Allen is 100, I lean towards the Chiefs. I lean towards Mahomes. So let's talk about it. Some headlines and notes for this game. This is the Spider-Man meme game. You know, like the Spider-Man when they point at each other? That meme? This is this game. They are as close as you can get to two elite teams being the exact same that you will see in an AFC NFC championship game probably in most of your lifetime. These two teams play very similarly. They have quarterback improvisers with massive right arms. They make plays. They don't really like to run the ball. They have great playmakers on the outside, two of the best receivers in the game. They have defenses that kind of concede the run and defend the pass. They have playmakers. They have great coaching staffs. They have aggressive pass-first teams, and they both are kind of leading the way in terms of NFL progression, in decision-making, in aggressiveness, in fourth down play calls, in red zone. So all of that stuff, this is the Spider-Man meme game. Couple things. The Bills didn't play their best game in the wild card or the divisional round. They won both games without playing very well, which is, I think, a factor because eventually the Bills are going to show up and play their best game. Now, how much does that have to do with their competition? Of course, a little bit. They played two good teams, the Colts, the Ravens. The Chiefs are a team, on the flip side, who they weren't playing very well entering the playoffs. Now, they look pretty good versus the Cleveland Browns, but I would say a lot of that had to do with the incompetency of Cleveland's defense. Like, I wasn't super impressed with the Chiefs' ability on offense. It was more like Cleveland kind of just sucks on defense, and we'll see if they can do that this week, although Kansas City has been the favorite all year. The Bills had no idea when the Week 6 game would be played. They had no idea. Remember, in Week 6, again, rematch, guys. It was originally scheduled to be a Thursday night football game in Buffalo. This game's in Kansas City. It then moved to a Sunday, and then moved to a Monday. So the Bills didn't know whether it was going to be on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, they had no idea. Okay, so they had to switch their plans and their practices. And this was like that whole jumbled mess of the Bills season where they lost to the Titans and the Chiefs. And it was like they didn't know when they were playing. I think the Bills have one loss when they know when the game is going to be played, which is an interesting stat, only in COVID year. Now, the Chiefs had 2 more days of rest than the Bills during that week. So that's also a factor. When looking back at week 6, it was a bad game for the Bills because they had a lot of injuries. They were dealing with a couple days of the Chiefs having over them like an advantage, and they didn't know when the game was going to be played. Now, this game's in Kansas City. So Buffalo, the Mafia, the tables, the flaming tables, that's not even going to be around the stadium. This is all going to be about the Chiefs' kingdom. The weather in this game, both teams are very familiar with, whether it is snowing, windy, or raining. I don't think I lean either way there in terms of the weather for who it would help or who it would hurt. Both teams are pretty much, again, Spider-Man meme, the same. And both of them have quarterbacks that can play through it and be effective through it. Although I will say Mahomes' numbers have been better than Allen's in this type of weather. The last time the Bills made it to the Super Bowl, they did it by beating the Chiefs in the AFC title game. They beat Joe Montana in order to get there. So that's just an interesting history thing that maybe Bills fans would be happy to hear. I think this game comes down to red zone efficiency. Red zone offense, red zone conversion, and the mobility of their quarterbacks to be the difference in extending plays and making plays that are not there. All those things are going to be big factors. Now let's check out the tail of the tape before we look at the injury reports. So the tail of the tape for both teams. These are both top 5 offenses, according to DVOA. The Chiefs number 2 behind only the Green Bay Packers. Defensively, the Bills have a decisive advantage, 12-22, although I would say the Chiefs always seem to rise to the occasion defensively in a big game. Point differential favors Buffalo. And turnover differential favors the Chiefs. I believe if the Chiefs win, I think in part will be because Mahomes doesn't turn the ball over and Allen does. I think that could be a factor that might determine this game. Again, guys, turnovers are the key difference in a lot of playoff games. I know it's simple analysis, but it's a big deal. All right. The injury reports. We have for the Bills, Vernon Butler, defensive tackle, did not practice on Wednesday. Gabriel Davis, wide receiver, did not practice for the Bills on Wednesday. I don't know their status. Davis played last week. I don't know if he'll play this week. I don't know if Butler will play or not. I would say Davis is a more significant loss than Butler, but both of them are solid depth contributors, and Davis has become a regular contributor. Kansas City, again, the key thing, I said it, I'll say it again for those of you to hear it again. Mahomes was a full participant at practice on Wednesday. But there's some interesting things here. Bashaud Breeland, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Rashad Fenton all limited at practice. That's 2 corners. Very important because Buffalo loves to pass. They got a lot of receivers you got to cover. So if Breeland or Fenton or both are out, that's a little concerning because that's their 3rd and 4th best corner on their team. And then you have the rookie Gay, the linebacker, who did not practice. Will Watkins be active? Will Clyde be active? It feels like Clyde will be active. I'm not sure about Watkins, but hey, Watkins revenge game, anybody? So, let's start off with the Bills offense versus the Chiefs defense. I believe that Josh Allen, he has not played well in wildcard game or divisional round. He played well in the wildcard game, but not his best, okay? He played really well, but not his best. He needs to play his best game here for them to win. I think Allen needs to outduel Mahomes in a way. And I think that can be had in a couple different ways. 2 main factors for Josh Allen. I believe him versus the blitz will be something to look forward to. The Chiefs blitzed Allen last game on 15 of his 31 dropbacks. That's like half. All that blitzing didn't amount to any sacks, but the Bills quarterback was under duress all game. He was pressured 54.8% of the time on his dropbacks and averaged only 3.4 yards per attempt. Those blitzes served a purpose. It kept Allen in the pocket, and he wasn't able to scramble, where Allen is really deadly. Just like you Chiefs fans know, your quarterback is very deadly when he can get outside the pocket and can scramble, move, and extend the play. That is where Allen is most dangerous. The Chiefs blitzed him, not necessarily to sack him, but to keep him in the pocket. Will they do that again? Now, it's important to note that guard John Feliciano did not play the first time. He will be playing in this game, and he is important to their protection up front, specifically in the interior. Josh Allen has gotten better at defeating the blitz since then. I think he would have done better versus the blitz versus the Ravens if the wind wasn't such a big factor, where he missed a couple big throws down the field. The wind was a much bigger factor than you thought in that game. There was a couple missed touchdowns or missed big plays where Allen just missed a guy just because the wind threw the ball off to the left or the right. It wasn't necessarily his throw. So if Allen is able to counter that with a big play versus Kansas City, that might be the advantage. But if Kansas City can consistently knock Allen off his rhythm, then they will have the edge. I think the other big thing for Josh Allen is his rushing ability, specifically in the red zone. This is something that Patrick Mahomes does not have that the Bills can use to their advantage. The Bills love to run Josh Allen. They didn't as much last week as I thought they would. But I think they can have success on 4 or 5 plays, maybe even up to 8 plays in this game. Short yardage, red zone, just key plays where Allen runs it himself, in a Cam Newton-like fashion. I think Josh Allen, especially within the 10-yard line, could be the secret weapon to gaining the advantage when getting touchdowns as opposed to field goals. The Bills last week did not run the ball basically at all because they played the Ravens and they said, F that, we're not doing that. This week, they'll run it a little bit more and with a little bit more success. Kansas City isn't great running the ball. I think that will keep them slightly more balanced, but I think the Bills will, once again, rely on Josh Allen to pass and a little bit of Josh Allen to run to win this game. Now, I think Spagnuolo, I love and I respect Spagnuolo because he is one of the best coordinators at taking away what an offense does best. And in this case, it is Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs. So my question is, how does Spagnuolo take away Stephon Diggs? Does he just double him all game and say, Josh, we're doubling him. You don't have him on this play. Who do you got? Is Beasley going to beat us? Is Brown going to beat us? Is Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox? Who's it going to be? Because you're not throwing to Diggs. And that's what I think Spags will do on key downs. Not all the time, but on key downs. Third downs, things of that nature. But the troubling thing with that, if it's man coverage, I think the Bills have advantages. John Brown specifically, his speed could be a problem. I don't know, especially with the Chiefs' injuries in the secondary, Breeland and Fenton both being on the injury report. That might be a problem. Gabriel Davis has shown he can win. Beasley it depends how healthy he is. He's kind of been beat up throughout these playoffs, but maybe you'll see Matthew on him. Maybe you'll see Fenton on him. Maybe you'll see a couple different guys, but I would expect a lot of Snead on Diggs with maybe safety help on Diggs a lot of the time. The key guy for the Bills to block is, of course, Chris Jones, him winning a lot just with a 4-man rush could be huge. Chris Jones is the best defensive player, arguably, in this entire game. I think you could argue it's him, Tyrann Mathieu, or Tre'Davious White. But Chris Jones has been a playmaker for them in the playoffs consistently. And in a few plays in this game, he could provide something that maybe the Bills don't have on the other side. So, when I look at that matchup, I see the Bills able to move the ball. I think with their external weapons, their secondary weapons. I think John Brown has a big game. I think Cole Beasley has a few clutch catches. I think Josh Allen will run the ball effectively. And I'm not so sure the Chiefs will slow down Stephon Diggs. I think Diggs will still have a decent game. I don't know if he'll have 150 yards. I would probably bet against that. But somewhere between 80 to 100 yards sounds about right. And I think the Bills will score through the passing game. And when they get to the red zone, they've been so good and so effective. I think they'll run it effectively with Allen. Question is, can they run it at all to keep just a little bit of balance? Now, flipping it to the other side, I think the Chiefs move the ball too. Patrick Mahomes, the question is, again, like I said at the beginning, his foot. Is that a problem? Like pushing off the foot, running outside the pocket. Does that make him a stationary player? Does that make it so that his improvisation, which is maybe his best skill, is not at the forefront of this offense? And if that's the case, that's a huge disadvantage for Kansas City. But I simply don't know that answer. I can't give you that answer. I will say this about the first matchup. The Bills are totally different defensively. They are way better, they are way healthier, and they are less vanilla. Vanilla meaning they are less simple. They're a lot more complex. They do a lot more things. They play a lot more coverages. And I think just generally they're a lot better. Just for example, the Bills played quarters coverage, which is a cover 4. 4 guys going deep, 2 to the flats, and then you got kind of 1 or 2 guys over the middle, right? So, and then there's match concepts on that. That's stuff you don't need to know. 20 out of 35 dropbacks. That's a lot. So they played the same defense a lot in that game. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to mix it up a lot more. I think you're going to see more of the classic Bills defense. And I will say this about Sean McDermott. Just like Spagnuolo, I have a lot of respect for him and Leslie Frazier and their ability to scheme up specifically to what you do well, specifically in your passing concepts. How do we take that away? McDermott is very good at that. That's his biggest, greatest skill, is where you're running this concept, we're going to have more guys in this area than you're going to have. It's different from being a primary man team. They're a primary zone team, but they always figure out in this formation or in this set, like where to put our resources. And that's what the Bills are really good at. And that's what I think they did a good job at last time they played, even though they were a lot simpler in that regard. Something totally weird about last game was that this was the lowest pass rate for the Chiefs all season. They played the Bills last time, and they ran the ball the whole game. It was very weird. And they ran the ball very well. I'm not saying they ran for 180 yards with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's not as healthy this game, but will play a factor. But I don't expect that to be the case. I think the Chiefs will pass the ball more in this game. I think they'll need to pass the ball more in this game. The Bills are better versus the run. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I think the key to why the Chiefs won last time was the Bills said, okay, we're going to concede the run, but Kansas City was so effective running the ball that it backfired on Buffalo. And they were able to keep possession. Allen couldn't get, therefore, on the field, therefore get rhythm, therefore get enough opportunities to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs possessed the ball an extremely, incredible amount compared to Kansas City in that game, or compared to Buffalo in that game. The Chiefs had the ball the whole second half. And that's why they won the game, because they were just running the ball. The Bills were playing, light box, and the Bills were just going 6 yards, 7 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, 5 yards, 25 yards. It was just ridiculous, right? And another thing that was weird was how much the Chiefs played under center. If you ever watch the Chiefs, they don't play under center at all. They never do. In this game, they did, right? They were under center for a season high 14 run plays. That's another season high. Very weird. That's not going to happen again, I don't think. In week 6, another weird thing. This was just a weird game. This was a way weirder game. Everyone's talking about the Packers-Bucs game. No, this game was weird, okay? In week 6, Buffalo did not blitz once in the entire game, guys. Now, I know this doesn't sound weird on the surface, but Next Gen Stats has been recording this statistic since 2016, and a defense has never not blitzed once in a single game. Okay, let me repeat this. This is the only team ever in 5 seasons that has never blitzed once in a single game. Guys, not once. That is crazy. That's nuts. Okay, so I would expect to say the Bills have blitzed more over the last half of the season, and I would say that Jerry Hughes has been awesome. Super underrated player. Jerry Hughes has been fantastic. But as we know versus Patrick Mahomes, similar to Josh Allen, it's not necessarily about creating, sacks. And it's about maintaining your pass rush lanes, not letting Mahomes create. And I think if Mahomes isn't 100%, that then kind of allows the Bills to be more aggressive in their rush lanes and be able to get after Mahomes a little bit more instead of just kind of pressuring him without sacking him and without getting past him. Because when Mahomes, when he sees you, you're rushing and your integrity of your rushing lanes isn't there. He's going to squeeze by you. He's going to run by you. He's going to create a play, and he's going to run around for 10 seconds, and eventually Tyreek is going to zip, and then they're going to pass the ball for 20 yards, and then it's all a mess, right? You got to keep Mahomes in the pocket kind of, but still maintain pressure, right? You got to make him kind of move backwards and collapse him in the pocket, whether that's through your 4-man rush, your blitzes, your whatever it is. And that's the way the Bills are going to do that, I think. So those were some interesting things I thought about the game and about that side of the ball. And I think the Bills are going to employ a similar philosophy, right? They're going to say, we want the Chiefs to run the ball. Like, we don't want to deal with Mahomes as much as possible. But I think they're better at defending the run. And I think a key player to this game is Matt Milano. He did not play last time. Either did Levi Wallace. Both are starters. One's a corner, second or third corner on Buffalo, and one is, I would say, the best linebacker on the Bills. Matt Milano is a very underrated player. He is back in this game. AJ Klein played last time. He got wrecked. Okay, Travis Kelce and those guys, they passed over the middle all day. Matt Milano is a great coverage player, and he is also very, very smart and instinctual, and he's key to their run and pass coverage. Okay, I think Tre'Davious White will be on Tyreek Hill. The question is, how do you cover Travis Kelce? I think it will be a lot of soft coverage. I think the Chiefs will once again throw the ball underneath, take their time, use their patience to move the ball, run the ball a little bit. But I think the Bills are much better equipped because of their intelligence on defense and their secondary, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. They're much better equipped to stop the Chiefs than the Cleveland Browns were. So I think at least in that case, it's going to be more competitive. I would guess that they try to double Kelce a lot, especially in the red zone. I don't really know who the matchup's going to be, Poyer, Johnson, Milano, but that's going to be a problem. Kelce's going to be a problem. When I look at this game, I really have no idea who's going to win. But I think it's going to be super close either way. I think it's going to be a one-score game no matter who wins the game. It's going to come down to maybe the last drive, the last little bit of the game. I think the Bills have been the better team as of late. I think the Bills have the edge in terms of their defense. I think is just a slightly better matchup towards the opposing offense. I think the Chiefs defense has more problems defending the Bills offense than the Bills defense has stopping the Chiefs offense. And I'm very nervous about Patrick Mahomes' injury. At the beginning of the week, I was leaning towards the Chiefs. But I think where the game comes down to is my nervousness of the Chiefs not having Mahomes at 100%. And Allen's ability to pass, run, and improvise to be the difference in the game, especially in the red zone. I think the Bills are going to execute in the red zone. The Chiefs have struggled in the red zone. They've been able to move the ball between the 20s as always. But where the Bills could win this game is by forcing the Chiefs to kick field goals and scoring touchdowns when they get the opportunity. So while I feel like the Chiefs might look like the better team in this game, maybe have more time of possession, maybe they move the ball better on a consistent basis, I think the Bills' ability on short yardage and in the red zone to convert is why they win. So again, I'm sticking with my previous prediction, which is the Bills to win the game. I really don't. I'm just going to tell you, I'm probably not going to gamble on this game, especially on the line, because I don't feel very good about this. But yeah. And I just realized my graphic actually says Buffalo -2.5. It's Kansas City -2.5. My bad, guys. But yeah, I don't know, guys. I really don't know. I think it's going to be a fun game either way. It's going to be a close game either way. But I'm leaning towards Buffalo because I think they're healthier. I think they're playing better ball. And I think I'm just nervous about Mahomes. So I'm going to take the Bills. I think the strategy they employed in the first game is going to be refined to a certain degree and better executed this time around. And I think Allen and this team has gotten to the point where they've learned enough and they've gained enough experience in the playoffs where this might be the game where everything comes together. You know, their defense has been playing well. Their offense has had spurts, but can they put it together in one game? And this might be that game. I don't think they'll be phased by, it's the Chiefs, it's Mahomes, it's the champs. You know, we're playing in their spot, they're building. I think they're kind of, over the last two games, they've been building, they've been learning, and they've been kind of like comfortable. I think the playoff experience won't be a factor too much. So I'm going to take Buffalo here. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about the game because I honestly have no idea. I don't know. But it's going to be fun. So those are my picks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown, my preview, my thoughts, everything. I'm just cheering for some good games. At the end of the day, I'm hoping for a great Super Bowl matchup. I think no matter what we get from these four teams, whether it's, Bucs, Bills, Chiefs, Packers, Chiefs, Bucs, Bills, Bucs, no matter what it is, it's going to be a great Super Bowl, I think. So, yeah. Gronk, spike that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Let's take a look at those comments and what you guys think. And yeah, guys, I apologize about the -2.5 for Buffalo. It is -2.5. Kansas City, it might get out to 3. It might, I don't know exactly where it's going to go there, but I'll have to correct that for the preview. Let's go. Any questions you guys got about these games or any questions you have in general NFL-wise or anything else, let me know. Ultra says, here's the thing with the AFC. Buffalo is actually only 13th in red zone offense, Mitch. Kansas City is 14th. So Buffalo isn't an elite offense in the red zone either, but it should be an excellent matchup. Ultra, could you check the recent performance from both teams in the red zone? I'd like to hear that. Durkant says, great analysis on both games, Mitch. You did your homework for this one. Thank you, Durkant. Yeah, I mean, you guys aren't going to agree with my analysis or my picks, I guess, on both games. But as long as you get something, that's all I'm really hoping for. As long as you guys enjoy it. Maybe you got a stat or a piece of information that you found was interesting that you can use. Trenton says it's going to be the State Farm Super Bowl. Is it just me, or is that the least interesting? I guess it's not the least interesting. I think the least interesting is Packers-Bills. I'd probably rank the Super Bowls in terms of intrigue. Probably Bucs-Chiefs 1. Number 2 would be maybe Chiefs-Packers, number 2. Number 3 would be Bucs and Bills. Number 4 would be Packers-Bills, I think. Right, are all those matchups? Ultra says my other counter in the NFC is the Packers offense is much less reliant on the quick strike game. They can throw the ball deep as well as Rodgers isn't limited. Another excellent matchup. Yes, they aren't limited to that, but that is where they're most effective, is what I was trying to say. That is where they make their hay. That is where they really move the football. Here's the thing I would say is, other than Adams, I don't think you're scared of downfield. And that's why I was very confused about the Rams' approach. And I'm very interested in Todd Bowles' approach. Because I think the Bucs, while they might not be the best corners, I think they're certainly very athletic. And they play their best in man press. So I think you got to play towards your strengths. I understand you're playing Rodgers. And that's why I suggest a lot of two-man is because you're not giving up the deep ball there with the two safeties deep. But you are still trying to disrupt the rhythm underneath. That's kind of what I was going for. But this is something, again, like I didn't really mention in the preview, but a lot of people, are quick to bring up that the Saints have a really good, and I brought this up last week. The Saints have a really good grasp of what the Bucs like to do. Concept-wise, just route-wise, formation-wise, just passing-wise in general. The Bucs had that same thing when they played the Packers the first time. And I'm not seeing anyone talk about that. Like, there is a play, for example, where obviously you could talk about the pick six where Jamel Dean was talking about that play and talking about knowing the route and knowing what was coming. It almost feels like Todd Bowles has a good grasp on what the Packers do. And there's a play in that first game where the Packers are trying to throw a quick screen and Carlton Davis jumps the screen because he knows it's coming. So I'm almost like, I'm not saying that's going to happen again, and I'm saying the Packers are going to have much more success. But is it a case of, like the Saints with the Bucs, the coordinator on the other side just has a really good grasp of what the offense is trying to do? That's my question. I think that's something that won't be answered until we watch the game. Does Brady thrive more under play action and motion or like Peyton in shotgun? Brady is better with play action and motion. Peyton was always he didn't like motion. He didn't like he was good with play action, but a lot of it, if I remember correctly, was from the shotgun. I remember a lot of like Peyton was like fake to the back and it would be set up that way. Brady is very good with turning his back to the defense and then play action from under center. Peyton developed more of that as his career went on, like later. But yeah, I would say Peyton was more about stagnant offense, and Brady is a lot more with motion and fluent, and he likes to see, dictate the matchups. He likes to Peyton just likes to see what the defense is. Like, oh, it's 2 high, 1 high, that sort of thing. What's my favorite Phillip Rivers moment? Yeah, thank you, Phillip Rivers, man. One of my favorite players throughout his career. Just a feisty. I don't know if I have one favorite moment. Do I? I just remember so many times like it would be the most exciting game of the week. Phillip Rivers for me, it would be 1 p.m. Pacific, and they're playing, and they're down 6, and it's Phillip Rivers every week, down a touchdown. He's got to drive the length, and it would just be incredible football. It would just be fun. He was a chirper, man. He was competitive. He was feisty. That's why I like Phillip Rivers. I don't know if I have a favorite moment, though. That's a good question. Jacko says Sue is the boogeyman of Aaron Rodgers. Tampa says, if the Packers lose this weekend, do you think this will be the last NFC championship for Aaron Rodgers? Or do you think they'll go back next season and finally ultimately advance? I think if he is going to win another Super Bowl, it has to be within the next 3 years. It has to be this year, next year, or the year after that. One of these next couple years. I think next year, Tampa will be in the mix again with Green Bay. I think the 49ers will be in the mix. And other than that, I don't really know who else will be in the mix. Maybe the Cowboys, if they can make the necessary changes to their defense with getting Dak back. But I don't really see a lot of competitors in the NFC that are better than the Packers moving forward. The Rams just missed a couple coaches. The Seahawks, they're in a bad spot, I think. The Saints are in a terrible position. Maybe the Vikings, because they have all this young talent and all these resources. If they can somehow get on track, maybe they'll be in the NFC playoffs next year. But I really think the 3 leading guys in the clubhouse next year will be Tampa, Green Bay, and San Francisco. Those would be the teams I would look at in the NFC moving forward. Ultra says Green Bay's run defense is much improved. But in Tampa's favor is that they are able to run pretty well versus the Saints' run defense, which is definitely a better unit than Green Bay. I think the thing also, Ultra, is that if Green Bay's here's the thing with Green Bay, they haven't played any balanced offenses. They played the Bears, which have one play on their passing game. The Rams, you were trying to take away. I think the thing that's like the Rams, you knew they were going to run, and you still allowed 5 yards a carry, right? You weren't really afraid of the Rams down the field. With the Bucs, the added dimension of them, just like with the Packers, of being unlike the Saints, where you have to deal with the deep ball, is the Bucs can burn you down the field with their receivers. And if you don't play too deep like the Saints do, you are going to give up deep plays, right? So that's kind of like, that's where it's really fascinating to me how the Packers manage that and how they attack the Tampa offense and kind of what they allow to be had from Brady's perspective. Because I don't think Green Bay, can sit there and stack the box, because they're going to be beating the passing game. And if they sit there and be a light box, they're going to be in the running game. So that's where it's a chess match. That's why I say the Saints are a tough matchup. Broken says the Bucs and Packers time of possession. Yeah, that's huge. I think that's huge. When you play Aaron Rodgers, he feeds off maintaining, the pace, dictating the pace, and his ability to have time of possession and work the ball down the field like that. That's huge. So I think that's really big for Tampa. Nick says Tampa is not going to be a Super Bowl team next year. Brady will be 44. It won't be good enough. I don't know, man. Even if he's average, I think there's still going to be a great roster. So, and being that it's probably his last year, I think a lot of players are going to play for Tampa. I think that a lot of guys are going to take a cut to play there. Nikki says, do you think the NFL rigged for the Packers? No. Dream says, Brady wasn't supposed to be good enough this year. Ultra says, Tampa is going to be right in the mix. Nick. Marcus says, age is irrelevant for Brady. Keith says, we played the Titans. Ultra says, Packers, Bucs, Niners, if they significantly upgrade at quarterback, will be the NFC contenders. Willie says, storyline, the Bills win their first Super Bowl in the history. Keith says, their offense all around. It's their defense. I'm not sure who you're talking about, Keith. Nicholas says, no, they will be a 10-6, maybe one playoff win, but they won't win a Super Bowl. Nick, I'd just like to ask, who's going to be better than them in the NFC? That's the only question I would ask. Turkan says, Mitch finally owned up about Buffalo's defense. Hey, they're playing a tough challenge this week. I would not expect a huge performance, but if they can play well, then they'll get a lot of credit from me. Rick says, Nicholas, so Brady's going to go from 48 touchdowns and 12 turnovers to 25 touchdowns and 25 turnovers. And he says, do you think that the NFL is rigged? Stop asking me that question. Brian says, I'm a Bears fan, but give Green Bay credit for the offenses. They did beat Tennessee. Yeah, but I think if you watch that game, and again, guys, I'm trying to remain unbiased here, but the simple facts are Tennessee was so discombobulated in that game. Sure, if Tampa comes out and they're discombobulated like that, sure. And the Titans don't have the players the Bucs have. I would argue they don't have as good of an offensive line. They don't have as good as tight ends. They don't have as good as receivers. They don't have as good as quarterback. So I think it's a little different. Dream says that if the Bucs come out discombobulated like the Titans did from the snow and whatever, then sure. I totally agree. Dream says that's what the Bucs were supposed to be this year for most people. Which was what? Marcus says, Nicholas, have you even been paying attention? DC says, I bet Nicholas said the same thing the last 4 years. Jacko says, we're going to win back-to-back Super Bowls. Tampa says, do you think the Chargers and Raiders will be contenders? Chargers, maybe. Raiders depends on their offseason. Coach says, great chess match in both games. Go Bills. Ultra says, also thought the Packers' pass defense was disappointing. I did too. I'm not sure why that was exactly, but yeah, and they didn't have Cooper Kupp. I'm not so sure why. That was something I wasn't expecting out of that game, was how good Goff was and how bad their pass defense was. I thought if they would move the ball, it'd be on the ground. And the Rams defense just didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Nicholas says, Cliff got the most pressure on him out of any head coach. If they don't make the playoffs, then Cliff is done coach. They might make the playoffs, but I don't see them as a contender. Samuel says, which team has the better defense, Bills or Chiefs? Oh, man. I'd lean towards the Bills, but it's very close. The Chiefs' defense is underrated. I think both units are underrated. Keith says, what do we got here? Nick says, okay, I got to stop saying stuff in January. Sports Today says, what kind of throws does Brady throw the best? Go out, back shoulder, slant, fade, etc. That's a good question. He's always been great in the inside, in deep ins, crossers, slants. He's really good at comeback routes, back shoulder throws, fades. The only things I've seen him this year that he's not so good at is outs, but I think that's more kind of the offense. There was a reason he's the greatest of all time. I don't think he was bad at any throw, but he was never known as a deep passer, but when he had receivers that could go down the field, he certainly proved people that he could do it. So it kind of also depends on the point in his career. Because the weird thing about Brady was he was better, he was better at throwing the ball deep in 2016 than he was in 2012, which makes no sense, but it's true. If you watch his arm strength and his ability to throw the ball down the field, his arm was stronger in 2016 and 17 than in 2012 and 2011. But his arm was at its strongest in 07 and 06 before he hurt his knee in 08. And then he's, of course, thrown the ball down the field this year very well. But I think declined slightly as a short passer. So I think with Brady, it was always about the players around him more so than the throws. If he had Welker, it'd be short. If he had Moss, it would be deep, It's just the way it was, I think, with Brady. It says, is it Matt Stafford a good fit for Indy? I think so. They got a great offensive line. I think if they add another receiver, maybe they can snatch Golladay. I don't know. Sports today. But, they need a number one receiver. But certainly Matthew Stafford would be an upgrade there. And I think he would make them an instant AFC contender because they already have a very good defense. They have a great running game, which is something Stafford never had. That would be the best offensive coach he's ever had. And they could beat you in a multitude of ways. So, I think the Colts would be certainly a contender. If you went to San Fran, though, that's my ideal spot just because, Shanahan. Of course, you have the best tight end in the game there. A bunch of different receivers who can do a lot of different things. But either would be good, I think. So he would be good in both systems, I think. Tampa says, would you finally accept Jimmy G back to the Patriots? I'd rather somebody else. That's all I've been saying. I don't hate Jimmy. I think he's a fine, good, decent quarterback. He's serviceable, but I don't think he's the future. AJ says, hey, man, new to the channel. What's up? What's up, AJ? Tampa says, who has the best defense out of the last four? That's the Bucs. Dream says Brady dominates over the middle. Nicholas says anyone can name anyone. Fly says Kyler Murray sucks. Nicholas says, I don't even know what these guys are talking about, man. Broken says Montana is the GOAT. Rick says Bucs have the best defense of the four remaining teams. AJ says, hey man, what's up, new channel? What's going on? What's going on? A lot of arguing in here. Logan's got the Bills and the Packers. Tampa says if we ultimately advance and play the Chiefs, do you think Vita Vea or Devin White will have a bigger impact and get pressure on Mahomes? That's a good question. Both will have an impact. But I would say Vita Vea because I think the less players that you send at Mahomes and can get pressure, the better. So I think Vea's ability to push Mahomes back and be a real problem for them in the interior where the Chiefs are really weaker on the offensive line would be a significant problem for the Chiefs' offensive line. So I think Vita Vea. Even though Devin White's speed, of course, will be valuable as well. What do we got? Make of Levante David video. Sports Today says, has Andy Reid overtaken Bill as the best coach in football? Not of all time, but now. I think you could say this year and the combination of last year and this year, yeah, I think you could say that. I think right now Andy Reid might be the best coach. I love Bill Belichick, but You got to go by recent success and kind of what you've done in certain situations. And Andy Reid hasn't. No coach has put his team in a better position to win these big games than him. So I think you could say that, yeah. Jacko thinks that Vita Vea and Sue are going to destroy the Packers' offensive line. Tampa says, do you think the Bengals will be a contender? It really depends on their offseason. Really depends on their offseason. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think it all comes down to one player, which is what you're talking about, Joe Burrow. I don't think it all comes down to him. He's certainly a guy that I'd want for the future of my franchise, but they need to get better in a lot of areas, specifically offensive line. Keith says, name 10 quarterbacks. The top 10? If Brady wins the Super Bowl with the Bucs, he will go down as the best pro athlete from any sport. Better than Jordan. Yeah, maybe. I guess that's depending on your preference or your perspective. All right. I think that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed this preview, these picks, and this breakdown for the AFC and NFC title games. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. Gronk, spike that like button. And we will see you very soon. Best bets out tomorrow night, most likely. And I will release the independent previews and breakdowns for these games very soon. So check those out. And if you missed anything here, check those out. For the streams, I'll be streaming both games on Sunday. And guys, also don't forget to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. If you're really interested in betting on these games this weekend, I'd head over to the Patreon to see where the edges are and who I'm betting on and what I'm betting on. So thanks, guys, for watching. It's been Mitch. Peace.